it's me, Shell360, and this is the review for episode 11 and 12 of W. So, I need to talk to you guys a little bit about the way the show airs and the way I review the show. That way you can understand why I do things the way I do and there won't be any misunderstandings or confusion about it. Because I know on the last review I did, a couple of people might have been wondering, why didn't you just go ahead and review the next episode that appeared that week? Because the way that the episodes are airing in Korea, they're doing even and odd numbers every week. So like this week they did episode 12 and 13 in Korea, and I'm reviewing episode 11 and 12. But that's because the format of my reviews has always been odd and even. So I've always done 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8. And that's traditionally how most shows air. But with the Olympics going on this summer, there was a week where the show only aired one episode, and that's kind of thrown off the timing. But from what I've read, there are only going to be 16 episodes of this show, and then there's going to be a final kind of greatest hits, behind the scene cast interviews type special thing that they're going to do. Because I don't ever review those things, I'm going to stick with the way I am. That way the final review for this program for me will be episodes 15 and 16. But I wanted to let you guys know ahead of time that that's what I'm doing, because I know it can be frustrating when I'm not reviewing the last episode that aired, but I kind of have to keep those together in order for me, number one, to keep the format I'm used to doing, but number two, it's easier for me to watch it that way, honestly. So like, I've watched episode 12. I have not watched episode 13. I will watch 13 when 14 is subbed on Viki. So I just want to put that out there ahead of time, let you guys know why everything's so confusing. And my nose itches, I'm sorry. So episode 11, when we left episode 10, the little to be continued sign had come up in the corner, and Eun-joo went back into the real world. So the first thing she did when she got back to the real world, get all the medical supplies she needed to help save Chul. Now, she wasn't sure if she'd get herself back into the manga, or manhwa, manhwa. I shouldn't have confused those two. She couldn't get back into the manhwa just on her own, so she went to her dad's place and got out his drawing tablet, and she starts drawing the medical supplies on the nightstand next to Chul, hoping that maybe he'll wake up and he can administer them to himself. She also erases the hotel room door so the police can't get him, and she also has changed the way their getaway car looks so the police can't identify the car. Now, the killer recognizes that his plans to kind of get Chul caught, killed, whatever, they're not coming to fruition. And he knows it must be somebody in our real world who is manipulating the scenes. So he reaches through the drawing board and tries to choke out Eun-joo. Thank goodness she happens to recognize that with no power, he will have no power, and she turns off the power on the drawing board and is able to keep him from killing her. Now, along with that, we also had the discovery of her dad, which I kind of skipped over in the timeline here. When she had come back to her dad's house to do the drawing, she found her dad on the floor of the drawing room with this no face. And I don't know about you guys, but I probably would have had a heart attack if I came home and my mother had no face. Like, I just know it would affect me profoundly. The fact that she had the wherewithal to be able to like grab her dad up, throw him out the room, lock the door, and get to drawing, that's amazing to me. Like, people talked about this actress and her not having acting skill, but everything that she's been doing so far has been totally believable and like on point for me. And the fact that she managed to act like somewhat freaked out and a little bit cool about the situation at the same time, mad props to her for her acting. She's really doing a fantastic job. So after she manages to, turn off the power to the tablet and kind of feel secure that she may have saved Chul so far, she puts her dad in the bedroom and locks the door on him because there's really nothing she can do for her dad at this point. He has no face. I don't know how he's breathing because he has no nose hole, no mouth hole, but he is alive, and she's doing the best she can to take care of him. So she's back in the real world. Subong had went to the hospital looking for her, but because of course, no-face dad had freaked him out, and the only person he knew that he could reach out to that would believe him was Eun-joo. So he calls her when she realized she's not at the hospital. She's like, I'm at the house, I'm trying to take care of this, I'm not sure what we're gonna do, but I'm just letting you know I'm here, I'm trying to work on things. So at the same time, inside the manhwa, Chul is trying to take care of himself, and he's administering all this stuff, and the police can't find him because the door is missing. And so She made it just in time. It seems like it worked out okay. Then somehow or another, Subong comes back to the house the father's house, with one of the guys from the hospital, and he's gonna go talk to Eun-joo. Well, Eun-joo is in the dad's drawing room, I guess, kind of freaking out, trying to figure out what's going on. And Subong comes in, and they talk, and he tells her about, why dad is faceless, what happened when dad was faceless, talking about, all the weird shit that's happened in the manhwa. That's all like the killer making dad do that. That wasn't what the dad intended, because, while she was in the manhwa and all this stuff was happening, she was like, why is my dad writing the story like this? This makes no sense to me. And Subong's like, it doesn't make any sense to me. That wasn't our initial plan. This is just something that he started doing, and I don't know what's going on. So Subong, I guess, turns around for a second, and she's like thinking about what to do next. All of a sudden, she's back in the manhwa again. And of all the places for her to be, she is in the prosecutor's office. And it's kind of weird, because you're wondering, like, why is she there? How did she get pulled back in here? Apparently, because of the killer choking her out, I guess knowing who she is, he pulled her into the comic world, I think, in order to try to find her and get her in trouble or get her killed, so that he can continue on the manhwa the way he wanted it to be. So I think that's why when he pulled her back, he pulled her in the prosecutor's office, because he figured the prosecutor will see her, have her arrested, and she won't be able to interfere anymore. But she manages to escape the prosecutor's office, and when she comes back into the drama, she's kind of at the same kind of timeline she was when she was at the hotel with Kang Chul, but then all of a sudden time moves, and a month later she's in the drama. A month has passed. So a month has passed, and she's like, shit, it's been a month. I need to go to the hotel room and check on Kang Chul. But when she goes to the hotel room, of course, the door is missing because she erased the door. The getaway car is missing, and she's like, fuck, I don't know what to do. I don't know where he's at. Somehow or another, though, she manages to keep contact information for the bodyguard for Kang Chul. And the bodyguard and Sui are still kind of like, man, I can't believe he's been gone for a month. I can't believe he's a killer. We can't believe, like, they're both in kind of a state of disbelief. But the bodyguard, he's not in as much of a state of disbelief, because him and Kang Chul have been in contact with one another, and he's been doing what he can to help Kang Chul, which I get where he's coming from. On the one hand, yes, his boss/friend has been framed for this horrible murder, and there's eyewitnesses with him having this gun and this dead man being by him. So, I mean, it seems pretty irrefutable that he killed his mentor. But at the same time, this is somebody he's known for years and years and years, and he's seen what a honest, justice warrior type guy he is. And so he's like, all right, well, this is going to be my last time I can help you, because with these two things going together, I'm going to give you as much of a chance as I can, but I'm not about to be dragged down and into any kind of low shit, because, I'm still remembering what you've been caught for and the people who saw you with this weapon. So when Eun-joo reaches out to him, he in turn reaches out to her and says, here's an address of a bus stop, wait there, he'll come get you. And tell him this is the last favor I can do for him, which, I totally get it. I totally get why you would feel that way. And I also get why he didn't tell Sui, because Sui, on the other hand, she's like gone for this man, because her whole character was created to be that kind of love interest character for him. So for her, she's just kind of in a state of disbelief. She just kind of lost. She just needs him to be there, because he truly is her purpose for living. So, she just can't get over it. So Eun-joo goes to the bus stop, waits for a while for the bus to come, I guess, I don't know, and Kang Chul pulls up in this car, and he's just wearing a baseball cap. And this is the only part of the whole series where I was kind of in disbelief, because I'm like, he's walking around town, people are seeing him, he's buying ice cream, going grocery shopping, all this stuff, and all he's got on as a disguise is a baseball cap. And the place he's been hiding out was his parents' old house. You would think if, the police were on their job and looking for him, one of the first places they would go to is his parents' old place. His old hometown. But you know what? That's the only thing during these two episodes that I was kind of like, really? You've been here this whole time? But anyway, he goes to get her in the car, and when he goes to get her in the car, he's just like, so were you able to fix everything? Because when she left, she told him, I'm going to fix everything. And she's like, no, I wasn't able to fix everything. I'm sorry. She's like, okay, all right, well, I guess we'll just hang out for a little bit then, and then I'm going to have to turn myself in. So he buys her a dress, like a $5 dress, which is super cute. He buys her ice cream. They go grocery shopping. And it's weird because it's very coincidental that the things that they're doing remind her of the times when she was in Chul during the dream sequence. So they go grocery shopping, and they go back to the house, and he's cooking all this stuff, or he's getting ready to start cooking. And he says, so that's one more, he's like, that's 4 more off of my homework. And when he says homework, all of a sudden, Eun-joo looks at him because she's like, what do you know about homework? And he's made references to her husband on and off during their time talking together. That's when he pulls out the manhwa. So, if you guys recall, when Eun-joo got pulled into the manhwa this last time when she was in the hospital during the shootout, she had fallen asleep in the real world with the manhwa kind of over her face. Well, she left it at the hospital. One of the guys from the hospital gave the manhwa to the bodyguard. The bodyguard gave it to Chul, and Chul's been reading this manhwa the whole time. And he's like been studying it because a lot of it is like really super coincidental, I guess, to his life, very oddly specific. And so he's been reading up on his relationship with Eun-joo. And after, I guess, thinking about everything that's happened and stuff, he kind of is like, I kind of believe that this is actually something that really happened, but I kind of don't because it's so preposterous. But then the fact that it's so coincidental that you helped me, and then I think of all the conversations that we had during when we were in Sui's apartment and stuff, I feel like, this could be real. And once he delivers kind of this revelation to her, a portal to the real world opens up and they step through. So they both end up in the real world. Subong, of course, is freaked out because it's Chul. And of course, Eun-joo shows him the dad, and she's like, she passes out of exhaustion because when you think about it, in the timeline that we're discussing here, maybe a few hours have gone by, but in the manhwa, she's had a whole month that flew by. She had like a week or so where she was practically starving to death because she was, trapped in this world with no money and no resources. So, finally, like, the toll of all the adrenaline rush and everything catches up with her. She passes out. So, they take her to the hospital. Chul stays at the dad's house, and he's trying to figure out a plan to kind of get everything on track and also to figure out what the hell is going on. So, the first thing he does is disassemble the drawing board, which smart because the drawing board is like the portal and the killer could come through there at any time. So yeah, it makes sense not to have that going on anymore. But he also asks Subong, do you have the next episode so I can read it and figure out where to go from here? Because he's still not exactly sure of the mechanics of the real world. Like, if the stuff that's happening in the comic book has already been pre-written and he just needs to figure out what the conclusion is, or if it's something that can be edited over time. So Subong kind of says, all I do is the backgrounds, man. I don't really have another episode. This stuff has been happening. It's been populating the book, basically. So he is instead given the USB port that he gave to Eun-joo during the dream sequence episodes. So he studies that, he studies all the past issues of W, and he's kind of come up with a plan. So he puts back together the drawing board, and he's got a gun pointed at it because he's getting ready to talk to the killer. And when he talks to the killer's like, I got a surprise for you. You aren't the first one to know that the real world was real. I was, because I caught the dad trying to kill you. And I'm like, who are you to kill anybody when I'm the killer? And he promised me that I would be the lead character. And apparently, the dad promising the killer that he would be the lead character is why there's some really weird side effect going on with Chul. His arm keeps disappearing. Like, it keeps fading in and out. And apparently, because he was framed for the murder of his mentor, and because the dad promised the killer that he would be the lead character, and has been doing all this stuff to frame Chul, it in effect, in the comic world, has made Chul no longer, not eligible, but no longer deserving of being a main character, which this is a point that I don't really get. Like, I don't understand how just because you're framed, you're no longer main character material, because the killer killed a whole bunch of people in the broadcast station, killed way more people than Kang Chul could ever be accused of killing. Kang Chul was accused of killing his mentor and his family, so that's 5 people. The killer killed 10 people in the broadcast station alone. Who is less eligible to be a main character at this point? That, and you got all these years of the drama's focus being on Kang Chul, and even Kang Chul the fugitive is still a main plot point for the show. So I don't understand how he's disappearing because he no longer is a main character. Like that, I didn't. That's another thing I kind of like. I don't know where the explanation comes from. But anyway, Kang Chul has this back and forth with the killer, and he manages to like destroy the tablet before the killer could try to come through and cause any more havoc or whatever. But he comes up with a plan. So the next day, or I guess 2 days later actually, because Eun-joo was in a coma from the exhaustion, so she was knocked out for 2 days. But a couple of days later, he gets with Eun-joo and he wants to take her on a date. He's borrowed some money from Subong, about $1,000, which is a lot of money, and he's going to take her on a proper date. So he shows up at her place, and it's so funny because there's this moment where he's like, I'm trying to catch up with where we were in the comic book, and I remember reading in the comic book that I've already seen you naked, so go ahead and open up your bathrobe. I thought that was so funny. I howled when I saw that scene, but I was also like, go ahead and show him, girl. But she didn't, and I understand why you wouldn't, because that's got to be mortifying. But I just thought it was really funny for him to ask, But he goes into her bedroom and he sees where she's got the little clips from the comic book on the window, and he sees her panties on the bed, which is hilarious. It's really sweet and touching that he recognized that even though he doesn't have memories of being her husband, he's, I guess, in a way, after spending a month studying the manhwa and thinking about the parts of her that he does remember from the interactions they had in his world, she is somebody that he does want to get to know better, and he does feel like he wants to, contribute to this romance, because he feels like she's been put in a really awkward position and, has had a lot of hardship based on everything that's gone on. And in one moment he's like, we have 5 kisses to catch up on that you already gave to your husband, so you need to give those to me. And they share one kiss in the car, and it's a really good kiss. Like, this one thing about this show has some of the best kisses I've seen in K-dramas in a long time. Like, really good kisses. Because most of the time when I see kisses in K-dramas, I feel like they're a bit awkward. But these kisses, they're very sensual kisses, but they're also very natural kisses to me, and I really appreciate that. But they go to lunch, and she's worried about him because she had called Subong right after she talked to Kang Chul, and he said he was coming over to her house. And Subong's like, listen, something's going on with his arm. It keeps fading in and out. I'm not sure what that means, but, I'm just letting you know he doesn't want you to know about it, but I'm kind of freaked out about it. So she confronts him about his arm in that situation while they're at lunch together. And he explains, yeah, it's because, shit's going on in the comic book, and I need you to, do some draw work for me. And, of course, she's like, are you going to tell me to draw It's All a Dream again? Because I can't go through that. I can't go through loving you and having you disappear and me being the only one who remembers this time. And he's like, I'm not going to ask you to do that. We've already tried that before. That failed. I wouldn't do that to you. If anything, I want you to draw it where you and me get married. Which I'm like, yes! But he's like, no, I have a different plan. And I think this one's going to work. We're going to keep going from the timeline we're already at. There's no going back in time anymore. But it's really important that we do this at the absolute right sequence. So, help me get this done, and hopefully I'll be able to come back to you and we can have our own happy ending, or at least continue to date, So the plan, I'm not exactly sure how I feel about this plan, because I still feel like this plan has a lot of loose ends. The plan is that he feels like there is a link between the two worlds, but that his world is not completely made up. That yes, the dad did draw the world and the characters and everything else, but his world is completely based on the real world and soul. So if that's the case, they can't be that his world is only whatever the creator made, that there's probably more depth to his world and there's more independence in his world. And so he does this really cool thing of he goes to the place where the manhwa has already said the killer leaves, but he goes to the real life place, stands outside the room, and somehow or another, Chul is able to manipulate when and where he steps into both worlds. So he gets to the door, and then all of a sudden he summons himself back into the manhwa, and he knocks on the door where the killer's at, and they have this big fight. He manages to tie up the killer, contact the police. The police come and pick up the killer. They let the prosecutor know, which honestly, that was one thing that a lot of people said in like the comments, was like, not in my comments, but in some comments for the actual show. They were like, why were they spending so much time hunting down Chul when the killer killed a ton of people at this broadcast station live on air? Shouldn't they spend more time finding him? So anyway, they managed to get the killer. Chul has Eun-joo draw him as a dead body inside his house. He turns off the stove, which I was so glad, because I remember watching that scene thinking, you're going to burn down your house. You got the pot still on. Turn off the pot. But anyway, he does that in order to give some closure to Sui, and then he like drives off into the sunset. And it looks kind of like an ending, even though I still feel like there's a lot of loose ends. But he somehow manages to make it seem like he could work with what's already there and try to get a satisfactory ending. But there's still a lot like that's left out there that we don't quite have tied up. But he does enough to where it looks like everything's okay, and then he comes back to the real world and back to Eun-joo. And at this very moment, that's all I can remember of episode 12. I cannot remember where we leave off in episode 12. I'm so sorry, guys. My memory is shot. But for these two episodes, I really liked how much they go back and forth between the two worlds, how much they show that the two worlds are linked but at the same time independent. And also, anytime we have Subong in the episodes, like he's my favorite. He's such a real life cartoon character, and it's so funny to me because a guy that's like cartoonish draws for cartoons, like that just, I don't know. I really love him. He's the best. But I do feel like if everything that's going on that we're seeing so far is being put as part of the manhwa that people get to read, I wonder how somebody who's reading it, like Professor Park, how he's taking all these storyline adjustments. Like, what does it look like for the consumer of the manhwa? That I'm interested to see. We really don't have, like, an end or a final wrap-up to the storyline for the prosecutor, but we still have 2 weeks left of the show, so, you know, who knows what's going to go on with that. In terms of Chul, after having set up all of this stuff, setting up his own death in the comic book and setting up the like capture of the killer, can he exist in the real world? Would he not fade away? Like, these are all questions that we're left with when we get to the end of episode 12. And I'm interested to see kind of where things are going to go from there, like how much influence the killer is going to have. And then even with Chul doing everything he did in episode 12, we don't know if Dad's going to get his face back. Like, what would it take to get Dad his face back? Like, that's a thing that really concerns me, you know. And again, the question, because we've seen Chul kind of disappear and reappear, if we end W, the series, the manhwa, is that an end to the romance between Eun-joo and Chul? And even if the manhwa W ended and Chul somehow manages to stay in the real world, how can they justify him in the real world? Like, he's just this guy that appears out of nowhere with no paperwork, no background, no one knows him, no history. Like, there's just so many loose ends everywhere that I wonder how they're going to do this, you know. And that's one thing that I actually thought was pretty meta about this particular episode, because I listened to a number of different podcasts, and I was listening to a podcast about anime, and they were talking about how Bleach recently had its ending, or its last chapter, I guess. And they were talking about how, you know, they tied up a lot of loose ends, but there was also some stuff that ended that they were like, what the fuck, that's not what should have happened. I guess there was like a marriage or something. I don't know. I'm not going to spoil it because I don't know enough about Bleach to even try to spoil it. I don't even know character names. But anyway, I know that I personally have been witness to a few dramas and a few cartoons and things of that nature where they wrapped up a lot of things at the end, but there were still a lot of loose ends left. There were still a lot of people that it felt like they weren't quite dealt with yet, especially in the world of dramas. Like, there's always like some side characters that you're wondering, well, what's going to go on with them? And there's main characters where there was an ending, but the ending is still rather open-ended. And so, yeah, I think that this is cool that the episode, in a way, was trying to force an ending, but it wasn't a complete ending. Just showing like what it's like when you have an ending to a manhwa that's unsatisfying. Because we had the one ending to the manhwa that was unsatisfying, which was the suicide of Chul, and everybody complained about that. Then we have another one that's supposed to be kind of an ending, but also kind of rushed. So what I'm expecting to see in episode 16 is a perfect ending. Because I feel like the writers of this show understand the frustration of audiences who pour so much time and energy into an art and follow it, and all they want is just kind of to have a final complete payoff. That I think it would be really shitty of the writers if they don't give us that on the very last episode. I think they're going to do that. I have so much faith in this drama, and if you guys know of any more dramas that this team of writers has written, please let me know, because I want to watch everything they're doing. Like, I want to be a part of it. I want to be a part of that world, because I really love this. You know, it's kind of like when I watched Coffee Prince and then I watched Cheese in the Trap. The director of Coffee Prince also directed Cheese in the Trap, I think. And so I had really big expectations, and the beginning of Cheese in the Trap was fantastic. The way it ended super let me down, but it was an experience that I appreciate having, because it was definitely a learning experience. But it goes to show that, you know, certain people that develop properties, they're worth trying to follow. And I think that the people who write this drama, they're worth trying to follow, because this is just, it's not like anything I've seen anywhere else, and I really appreciate it for what it is. So thank you for watching my review, and I'm sorry if my timelines were everywhere and it seemed super rushed and unfocused. I don't mean it to be that way, but it's been a minute since I watched episode 11, and then because I was trying to make sure I got the timeline for episode 11 right, I think I fucked up at the ending of episode 12, but you know, it is what it is. I'm only human. So I will talk to you guys on the review for episodes 15 and 16 of Uncontrollably Fond. I'm not sure where I'm at on Uncontrollably Fond. Now that I think about it, I think it's 15 and 16 of Uncontrollably Fond. But I'll see you on the next review for either Uncontrollably Fond, or I'll see you on the next review for 13 and 14 of W. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.